All right, guys, it's back to school. I'm gonna make this video a quick one because we are short on time. Today's video, we're gonna be talking about whether or not Mount Coast is worth buying. Because if you're like me, then I really only have a certain budget for shoes, and I usually go to brands like Nike, ASICS, Adidas, New Balance, Saucony, the usual suspects. I want to try all of the brands, all the shoes, Topo, Mount Coast, Mizuno. I usually don't get the opportunity to, and so thankfully some brands have started sending me shoes like Mizuno and Mount Coast. So today we're going to review the S1 and the R1 because I've run in both. I'm going to compare them so you could see like which shoe might be best for you, and then I'm going to tell you, real talk, whether or not Mount Coast is worth it. So let's get into it. Yeah, so shout out to Mount Coast for hitting the market really hard with a big splash. Thank you for sending me these two shoes. Now we're gonna quickly talk about the differences between them. Now, they make ultra shoes, caveat, before we get into this. Uppers. Now, this isn't really gonna be like a shoe battle because they're two different shoes, even though they're both daily trainers. So the upper for the S1, which is, the upper for the R1 and Mount Coast. We gotta do the R and S are like right next to each other in the alphabet, and it's a little confusing. I mean, R is for racer, so like I should be able to get that one. But anyway, let's talk about the R1. The upper is probably the highlight of the shoe. There is a dual system up here so you can perfect the lockdown. And the reason it's so accommodating is so that you can adjust the lacing for any swelling your foot might have, because you'll be running in the shoe hypothetically anywhere between 2 to 18 hours a day. Okay, now the S1, I would say the upper is more about the aesthetic. The upper kind of reminds me of like my son, here's his shoe, like some of those older like retro Nike type of shoes, right? It's not a high top upper or anything like that, but it does look good. This is the only shoe that I've ever worn that my wife has actually complimented. And at work, there were at least 2 or 3 people who complimented the shoe. Nobody ever compliments my running shoes. So shout out to the S1 for looking clean or fresh. Now, both of these shoes feel very comfortable with the padding around the heel collar and the overall fit, which makes sense because they're ultra shoes and the idea is that you're going to be in them for a long time. But the S1 is a little bit heavier and it feels a little bit more sturdy or stable or well constructed, even though they're both well constructed. But I feel like, like old people, whenever they're like, oh, they don't make X like they used to, and that's how old people talk. I imagine that if they would talk about this shoe, they would be like, oh yeah, they don't make them like they used to. And this is what they used to make them like, it's just like, that's a well-made shoe right there. Okay, now for the midsole and for the ride, the R1 has a few more gears. It's a little bit lighter, so you can pick up the pace in it. It's also, however, it feels like underfoot a little bit wider, and it might only technically be a hair wider underfoot, which brings more of a stability element, and I dislike it very much. It's a personal preference though. Like I've never really gone on well with Hoka. They're okay, but it's got that wider kind of Hoka thing, which again makes sense. It's an ultra shoe. You're going to be running in it all day. You would prefer it, but it kind of goes against going faster, right? Versus the S1, which just feels a little bit more nimble underfoot. It is heavier, but it does feel a little thinner or more like a traditional shoe. Okay, now also the other thing about the midsole is there is some guidance technology to help you roll through from your heel to your toe, and it feels more aggressive or controlling in the racer, which I don't like when I'm just getting into a run, but I'm sure when I'm 2-3 hours into a run, I appreciate it controlling me a little bit more. So the S1 has this same sort of guidance technology, but it is more muted. You have more control of the S1 than you do the R1. Okay, for the outsole, both of these shoes seem very durable. I wouldn't know, I live in South Texas. I'm not gonna throw shade on these shoes. I will just pray that God throws some shade our way because we could use it. The sun rays are the only thing I'm worried about, and none of these shoes got a sunburn. I don't know what I'm talking about right now, but They also seem very fine. Oh my goodness, have I gone the whole video without sitting into one singular shot? Is this even midlife? Okay, the price. Are these shoes worth it? Let's talk about it. We've got the S1 and it comes in at 150 and the R1 at 160. Okay, Mount to Coast. These two shoes, they're too close in price. I mean, who's not gonna pay the extra 10 bucks? I think you gotta go separate. You gotta make the Racer like 180 and then keep this one at 150, or drop this one down to like 110, 120, give people a reason to buy it, and then keep the Racer at 160, but having them too close together, you know, what's 10 bucks? You know, at this point it's a latte, but I mean, you know, for a latte more, you could get the Racer that's lighter. So why not just get that one? You know what I mean? Okay, so then I think I have to say 3 things about whether or not these shoes are worth it. Number 1, thank you, Mount to Coast, for considering me and sending me these shoes. Number 2, I don't think they're worth it compared to the rest of the market as it stands, with the 1.0s versus the competition. Things like the Adizero SL2 at 130, the Nova Blast 4 at 140, the Rebel V4 at 140. And those shoes, some of them, even like the Mach 6, they get hype, they get the it factor, especially the SL2, right? They're just, when shoes hit the market, the Neo Vista, the Skyward X, people buzz about them, they talk about them like, you gotta go get them. And for me, that's like, I gotta go try it. And all the reviews that I've seen, these shoes, they don't have the it factor. I'm telling you, they don't have the it factor. They're good shoes. You wouldn't be disappointed if you got them. You wouldn't be like, I gotta return these things. These are bad shoes, but they don't have that it yet. They're on their way, but they're not there. Okay, and the third thing that I want to say is that, well, that was just for me on number 2. And number 3, everyone's different. If you were only gonna buy one shoe, then I would say, are these 2 shoes worth it? Well, now I've got to pick the singular best shoe in this category, and then any other shoe wouldn't be worth it because it's not the best, in my opinion. Or there are people who buy like 40, they have 50 shoes. They just buy running shoes, they try all the brands. Someone says, hey, try this stuff. I'm like, I wanna try it. They're connoisseurs. So yeah, they pick it up just fine because they buy Atreyu, they buy Topo, they buy Mizuno, they buy all the brands just because they like it. So then I would say yes. But for most people, if you're in that range where you're just buying a couple of shoes or a few shoes, I would say against the competition, it's gonna be a no for me, dog. Okay, that being said, number 4, yeah, I know, I said there was 3, but really there's 4. These shoes have to be ideal, more ideal for somebody. So who are they most ideal for? Because if somebody just, and I know a guy named Jason, he just goes out and he runs all day. He doesn't care about pace or speed. He hits the trail sometimes, he hits the roads, and he just runs hours and hours. He just likes to run. This would be his shoe all day. You just run all day in the shoe. He would be like, this is the shoe for that guy. The R1. The S1, I would say this one kind of appeals to people in a category of shoe, which I would call like a gym shoe. No disrespect to the gym shoe, but there's like a guy who goes out there and, you know, he might wear a Brooks Ghost, he might wear a Nike Pegasus, but he also might find more shoes that aren't running shoes, that are, even though this is a great running shoe, he wouldn't know it, right? But the aesthetic is nice. He could wear it to the gym, he can lift in it, he can hit the treadmill, and it could fit his look. You know, the fit's there. Was that cringy enough? Okay, and lastly, I will say this. I do think Mount to Coast has done, like I said before, a very good job of getting these shoes into the hands of almost every shoe tuber or influencer out there to build awareness of the shoes. But I think getting it into more consumers' hands for somebody to take a risk and a gamble as a runner on a new brand, there's gotta be an incentive and a reason. And one way, sure, would be to blow everyone away with the best shoe possible, absolutely. But another way to do it is with the price. Now, I understand like all of these shoes, they're very well constructed. There's a lot of engineering putting into them and you don't wanna eat your cost or anything. I understand, it's a business. But I think about how I was introduced into certain brands. I saw a sale on the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2 on Amazon and I bought it and I loved it, and then I started exploring Mizuno more based off of that one thing, but it was a sale. So I would say that like if there was a way to cut the cost on even one shoe so you could introduce people to the brand, that way may be the best approach, in my completely unsolicited opinion. Oh, and by the way, guys, now I have tried 5 Mizuno shoes. I'm stacking up all the miles. I'm just gonna make one really big Mizuno video where I do a full reviews of every shoe. So if you're interested in trying Mizuno, you can go through the chapters, find the shoe you want to try for 2024. I haven't shot it yet, but I'm going to, and then I'm gonna go back in time, and then I'm gonna put it right here.
We came along from last place, bottom to top of the fast pace. Out of this surf, I get touchdown. I take a loss, get it back 8. I'm in the gym putting numbers up. You're never there, you got bad traits. Never excuse.